Uh, Thank you and welcome to the Pathways to Future 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan Advisory Committee meeting. This is our third meeting, and I'll share my screen so everybody can orient visually as well. Okay, so can everybody see my screen now? Okay, good. Um, so we asked that everybody please write your name and affiliation in the chat so that we can record your attendance at this time. Just a few housekeeping things while people are recording their attendance. The LRTP Advisory Committee meeting is always scheduled to be in Zoom, but somehow the Outlook appointment calendar was showing Teams meeting as well. We tried to remove that yesterday, but it wasn't successful. So what I'll do is once we finish this meeting, probably sometime today or tomorrow, I'll cancel all those meetings, which is in your calendar, and then send a new meeting to make sure that we don't have that team links there anywhere. So just to make sure that everybody that the meeting will always would be in Zoom. There could be an in-person meeting for the milestone meetings if everybody wish to have so. But mostly, if the meeting is virtual, it's going to be in Zoom platform. Okay, the next thing is the January 22nd meeting summary. Uh, does anybody have any issues or any corrections to that meeting summary which was sent with the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we move into the next thing in the agenda, which is the public comment period. As far as I know, we haven't received any written comments ahead of the meeting, but I'll ask Sid if there's anybody from the public who would like to address this meeting now.
We don't have anyone on.
Okay, thank you, Sid. Hearing that nobody is there, let's move into the next item, which is the progress update for the LRTP. So before we start, I would say that in every LRTP meeting, we would start with the LRTP process flow. This is because so that it keeps you oriented about the process and where we stand right now. So I guess you have seen this a couple of times already, but you'll keep seeing this all the time. So just a recap that it's an 8-phased cyclic process. Um, we start from the baseline development, which has already been done. We did the pathways to the future scenario planning project, which has already been done and approved or adopted by our policy board. The strategic direction is something which is the meat of the meeting today. Transportation needs assessment. We are working on it, and you'll have a presentation from Dorian about it. The other phase is the development of projects, project prioritization, plan evaluation. That's coming in the future once we finish phases 3 and 4. Again, this is the same thing, but this is something more publicly oriented, which the public can digest. It's the same thing, but which more, I would say, layman language, so that people understand what each phase of the plan is all about. Uh, Also, this is something which the LRTP Advisory Committee has already seen. Um, So it's basically stating that even though it's a cyclic process, we are working currently in two parallel processes, which is basically phase 3 or task 3, which is developing vision goals and performance measures, which is going on parallelly with the transportation needs assessment, which we are working as well. So the translation needs assessment would lead to the universal project development and project prioritization process to develop the constraint plan, whereas task 3, along with vision and goals, will develop the performance measures, which are the technical mechanism to measure the goals and the objectives, and that would be used in the project prioritization process. So that would be the link, the hard link with these two processes. And then also there are action items which the LRTP advisory committee needs to do. So in some cases it's input, some cases it's a recommendation to the policy board. Some cases like today about the goals and objective, we need to have a long discussion about it. And then finally, in a lot of cases, the LRTP advisory committee has to have an agreement. Since this is a consensus-based model work group, will not be asking for any approval, but it would have to have the agreement from the group to move forward. Okay, finally, just wanted to give details on the ongoing task and the coming actions from the advisory work group. So today, the goals and objective, as I mentioned earlier, we would have a discussion, breakout room discussion for an hour, and then report back about it. Once we have that discussion today, we'll take your input, and we'll ask for your recommendation in the next meeting, if that's possible, if everybody agrees upon it. So that's the progress and the timeline for task 3. For task 4, the issues identification, we are developing state of translation report, which you will be able to review in the next, which will go with the next agenda. We'll also provide you the inventory of the needs and the maps based on the needs which we have developed in the meeting after that. And then you'll have a month to review that. And then in the further subsequent meeting in June, we'll ask you to recommend that for the policy board. Also, we are working on a few reports which you'll be able to preview, and Donna is going to talk a little bit much more detail on that. We also know that there's a public engagement going on for task 4, which would end technically by April 30th. The website would be open, but again, we have to have certain cutoff time so that we can actually see the input from the public and do some analysis. The website won't close, but for the purpose of analysis, we would close that by the end of April. Also, task 5, which is the project development. After once we have finalized the needs and the issues, we need to develop certain guidelines to include what sort of projects we want in the LRTP. For the project in the LRTP, it has to have certain magnitude because this is a regional plan and the projects need to have that scope as well. So that topic would be introduced to you in the next meeting. And then if possible, we would like your recommendation and agreement on the subsequent meeting in May about that. And then also to report that the LRTP data development for processes task 4, which is the issue development, and as well as task 6, which is the project prioritization, the programming phase. We are also starting to work, develop data on that as well. So the final thing I just wanted to give you guys is about the LRTP meeting web page. So the web page is located in Plan RVA website, and it has everything which is presented in this meeting. So it has the agendas, it has the minutes for that particular meeting. In cases if the meeting is virtual, it would have recording as well, and any action item or presentation which is presented in that particular meeting would be there as well. So it's one short place if you want to look into any previous meetings, any recordings, any agenda, meeting minutes, everything, it would be there. So once we end this meeting, we'll provide you this presentation, so you have that link. And if you need that, anything from the LRTP, everything would be published in this LRTP meeting web page. So I'll finish here. If there is any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Okay, seeing none, I'll stop sharing my screen. I think the next is Dorian's presentation about LRTP Phase 4.
Dorian, you muted.
Let me pull up the presentation. All right, thanks everyone. Just want to give everyone an update on the LRTP Phase 4. This is our transportation issues needs assessment. This is a very foundational component of our LRTP, which looks at all facets of our current transportation system and allows us to understand the issues, needs, and deficiencies that we can address through either projects or through policy. So just a recap of our existing multimodal transportation system analysis. During this process, we collected GIS data from area localities, from various agencies' open data portals. We also looked at historical trends, just to understand where have we been, where's our transportation system been within the past 5, 10, 20 years. Also looking at existing pavement and structure conditions, as well as our congestion management. Some of the deliverables from our state of transportation, some of our deliverables for this section are the state of regional transportation system story map, which basically gives us a more of an interactive way to present our information, present our GIS findings, and present our historical information. The state of transportation report, which looks at all facets of transportation throughout the area, basically highway congestion, roadway management, roadway maintenance, freight movement, bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. We're also looking at the FY25 congestion management report, as well as the Richmond Regional Structure Inventory and Assessment Report for 2024. So where are we currently? The congestion management report and the structural inventory and assessment report are completed. Under review at this moment in time is our state of transportation report and our story map. For our state of transportation report, we're basically going through editing, formatting, trimming information that's not needed and adding information that is needed throughout the report. Additionally, our story map, we're basically completed with that, but just want to have an internal review to make sure that we're crossing all T's and dotting our I's. Our state of transportation report, as Sulab mentioned earlier, that will be slated for mid-April for your approval and for publishing. Also, just to recap our transportation needs assessment, our main component of this process is to identify key barriers to safe, efficient, and interconnected transportation. During our last meeting, we discussed how we are looking at existing and future conditions, also looking through local and regional plans and studies, also using robust public engagement process to make sure that we're getting information from the public themselves about where they're seeing transportation issues and deficiencies throughout their daily lives, and also using industry knowledge, understanding what role technology, things such as AI, and then future trends will play in the role of future development of our transportation sectors. And then we develop a list of transportation issues. What are the issues that are facing our transportation system going forward? And then how do we address those issues through our needs? What needs can we develop from those issues? From that, we get a final regional existing multimodal needs inventory. So what does that look like on our end? So here we have our issues-based compilation of regional needs and progress. And what we do here is we look through the area plans and try to identify projects and policies that address these regional issues. So as you can see, we have the issue description, issue category based off of various needs throughout the area, and then the issue type. And this is where we go into the multimodal aspect of the process. So we're looking at freight and intermodal, bike pedestrian, roadway safety, and things of that nature. And then also putting into a category. Are these roadway issues? Are these interconnectivity issues? Are these intermodal issues? Looking at the location, we want to be able to precisely locate and map where these issues are, and then which jurisdiction and then the source in which we get these issues. Some of the area plans do have proposed projects that we want to make sure that we are documenting as well. So going forward, we're making sure that are there any kind of proposed projects, studies, plans, or initiatives that we can pursue so we can address these multimodal issues. So currently, we're still in the mapping phase of our transportation needs assessment. We want to be able to visualize what the transportation issues are, and then we want to compile into one shapefile. So what you're seeing here is just an example of how our mapping exercises are going. This is basically the congestion within the region, making sure that we pinpoint the specific areas that have these issues and want to make sure that we are addressing them accordingly to their location and then their relative importance to overall the function of the transportation system. And our ultimate goal is to disseminate this to the localities and agencies for approval. So what are our next steps? We want to continue the internal coordination to develop the story map and state of transportation report. As I stated earlier, these will be available for you during the next LRTP Advisory Workgroup committee meeting. We want continued internal and external coordination revolving the needs and issues inventory. Again, basically going through our respective agencies, localities to understand and really have a deep dive conversation into the needs and issues into the inventory, and then the mapping of the regional multimodal needs based on the input. So this is an ongoing process. We want to make sure we are currently within our QA/QC period. We want to make sure that we are our information is as precise and correct as possible, so we can disseminate that to you accordingly. So, are there any questions or concerns? Hearing none. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Dorian. So let me share my screen back again for the next item. Okay. So this phase 3, LRTP phase 3, what matters most for the future strategic direction, that's the meat of today's discussion. Before we go into breakout rooms, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on what we are doing. So basically, I provided this presentation last time. So what we have to look at this task is the regional strategic plan, which is the plan developed by Plan RVA, which needs to be aligned with all of the planning document or plans which the agency produces. So you need to acknowledge that. Translation vision and guiding principles. As I mentioned last time, we are doing that at the policy board level, not at the LRTP advisory committee level. The vision and guiding principle have already been adopted last time, but the board might want to tweak it a little bit. So it's going to be a discussion at the policy board level, not at the LRTP advisory committee meeting. And then obviously the goals is something which is in the purview of this committee. So development of goals and objectives and strategies. And then obviously the performance measures framework for the LRTP. The adoption date is technically, for the time being, we are thinking of August because once this group agrees with the goals, we have to have a formal public comment period for 15 days. and if any comments received, we have to tweak the goals or things like that based on those comments as well. So once this group agrees upon it, we'll have that 15 days public comment period, formal comment period on the goals and the objectives which we have approved. I mean recommended by this group, and then we go to the policy board for their approval. So this is the vision we have from last time. We might need to tweak a few things based on the recent federal guidelines, but I think that's the purview of the board, and we are not discussing it now here. The guiding principles, we have 7. I think they represent the wide range of the things which we want in our transportation system. So again, it's pretty well versed and was adopted last time. But again, it's up to the board's purview to tweak them or change them. So then we have the goals, strategies, objectives, and PM, which is the purview of this policy, this advisory committee. So again, recapping what the general definition of goals and objectives which we want to use in this plan. So basically the goals is what do you want to do, and the goals will describe a series of desired end states for the region's transportation system, which would be informed by the vision, and it'll be the foundation for all objectives and performance measures. The objectives is basically how do we measure success. So objectives would be specific measurable statements that support the achievement of the goals. Strategies is like how will we get there, how would we achieve those goals and through those objectives. So those would be high level approaches, methods, or even policy statements used to achieve those goals. And then finally, performance measure is basically how will we measure success through a data driven approach. So it provides those technical mechanism, the data, the modeling platform to actually report or monitor those the progress towards goals, goal objectives, and vision. So we are proposing 4 goals as it was sent. I think it was briefly spoken about in the last meeting and also provided in the agenda packet. So safety, sustainability, reliability, and resiliency. I think those are the 4 big words which we want as goals. We'll not be defining it now here because that's going to be in the breakout session. But these are what we are proposing as 4 big goals. Again, we also have to look at the federal requirements. The long-range transportation plan is a very prescriptive federal document, and we have to work accordingly. How the plan has to have certain elements which has to be aligned with what the requirements are. So one of the requirements is that we have what we call as the federal planning factors. This was, I think, reconfirmed by FAST Act. I think MAP 21 had 8 goals, and then they added 2 more factors, the last 2 in the FAST Act legislation. So I'm not going to read it, but we have to align our goals with the federal planning factors as well, which is a requirement. The other thing is we also have what we call as the national performance goals based on MAP 21. This was the transportation legislation before FAST Act, but as far as I know, these were not rescinded. So these are still active, even though we have those 10 national goals, factors, planning factors. So safety, infrastructure congestion reduction, system reliability, freight movement, environmental sustainability, and reduce project delivery delays. I think most of them would be naturally be in our goals, but again, just wanted to make sure that these are also stated and these are also aligned with our goals, which we are proposing. So this is a crosswork of the federal planning factors from FAST Act, the national performance goals from MAP 31, and our proposed goal, how they align with each other. And mostly, I think whatever the planning factors or the national performance goals is asking, we would be uh, achieving those through one another goal or a combination of one or more than one goals. So safety is simple. Infrastructure condition, as you can see, the performance measure, the federal planning factor was imprecise and preservation of existing transportation system that would be covered through reliability. Congestion reduction would be also covered through reliability. I'm not going through all those, but in one way or other, we are aligning all these factors into our goals, and which is a requirement as well. Um, and then let's go to the objectives now. So the objective is basically something which describes measurable statement that supports achievement of the goals. And the SMART objectives is something which has been there for some time. So SMART is like specific, measurable, agreed upon, realistic, and time bound. So here's an example for our one of our goals, sustainability. Um, a transportation system that meets the needs of people alive today and provides the same opportunity for future generations. So that's our general statement goal for transportation sustainability. And the objective here is so it's specific. It says by 2050, the average number of vehicle miles traveled per person each year is reduced by X%. So it has to be specific, it has to be measurable. This obviously is something which we can measure, and it has to be agreed upon by this group, also the policy board in some sense. And then it has to be realistic as well. We know that there's going to be VMT in the future as well. We can't say that everybody is taking transit or everybody is biking. That's not realistic as well. Um, so it has to be realistic. It has to be something which is achievable, and then obviously time bound. So this is 2050 long range transportation plan. So we talk about what is going to happen in 2050 rather than the other times. So for the objectives, there is that X%, as you can see that. So we are comparing that with three values. So firstly, there's what we call as the base year, which is the existing year data. So and the base year is from 2017 to 2022. It's basically because the socioeconomic data, which is the backbone of the long range transportation plan, that was not updated after 2017 because of COVID related reasons. 21 and 2021 were hit by COVID, and for any long term projections, it was not a realistic year to do those kind of projections. So we didn't do any projection at that time. So that's why we still have that lot of information in 2017. But for some of the other data like safety and other things, we still have data from anywhere between 2017 to 2022. I think for any data, there is a lag of 1 or 2 years. So I don't think we have anything for 24, or in most cases, we don't have anything for 23, but we might have some data for 22 as well. So that's why it might mostly the base year overall, the model, everything is 2017, but something for some of the other data we have till 2022 as well. So it's basically we don't need to confuse with the year. It's basically the existing condition with the latest data which we have, latest and greatest data we have. So that's the base year. And then we also compare that with the existing plus committed conditions. So it's basically we already have certain transportation projects already obligated funds which are going to be phased for construction soon. Those are definitely going to be built. That's not in the ground now. So those that network of transportation in which we have those existing and committed projects, it's called E plus C, or existing plus committed network. Um, so that's basically the no build for 2050. So if we don't build anything after what is already committed now, that's what we call as the no build. And normally in any long term scenario analysis or comparison, we use the no build, the future no build as the baseline for comparison purpose. So that's one thing which we can do as well. And then obviously the built is the cost feasible 2050 conditions, which is the all the projects in the constraint list, and we assume that those projects would be built, and that would be our transportation network. So that's our Build 2050. So we can compare what we have now for the vehicle miles travel with the no build condition, and I mean with the build condition, and also at the same time compare the no build condition as with the build condition as well. I think that's normally is done to see what is the change, or how much is reduced or increased based on the projects which you have selected. Because sometimes if we compare with base year, which is now, for the future, it's not a simple apples to apple comparison. For example, VMT, the VMT per capita might decrease in the future, but as we all know, we have 1.1 million people now in the region, and in the baseline scenario, we have 1.4 million people. So there's like 300,000 people increasing in this region. So that would, and each person need to have certain trips to do their work or go to school, something. So it's gonna the VMT overall is going to increase. So sometimes it's not a fair comparison to compare it with the base year, which is now. So that's why we need to compare with the no build versus build. That would actually give, based on the project selection, how does those projects actually try to reduce the VMT. So that is something which I just wanted to make sure that everybody is clear with. Uh, and then we have the goals. So I'm not going in detail with all the goals. That is the breakout discussion. But we have a general definition of what safety means, uh, based on federal highways guidance, based on what we want to do in this plan. And then we have a goal for each, like goal statement, which obviously needs to be reviewed and wordsmith if needed. And then we have the objectives. And then in some cases, we also have the base year values. In this case, for safety, the goal is the transportation system where no one is killed or seriously injured. That's a very straightforward, simple statement. Then we have the objectives. By 2050, the number of people killed or seriously injured on our roads will be reduced by a certain percentage. Obviously, there is that aspirational thing that we want vision zero, but obviously we have to have objectives which is realistic and which is achievable. So that's the discussion which is going to happen. And again, in some cases we have the baseline values. So I think this is from 2022 data that we had 116 fatalities in our region and 871 serious injuries. So obviously we just want to reduce this by certain. We can go to zero, or we can go to reduce by certain number. So that's going to be the discussion, and whether the objective is actually right or not for this kind of goal as well. So I'm not going into detail with all these goals and objectives, but this is what we have for discussion. So similar with sustainability, we have that with reliability. I think this was sent to you ahead of time. There's been a few minor tweaks to some of the objectives, but basically it's the same. The 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 document which we sent you, I think it has the accurate information, apart from a slight little bit tweak, so that it's so that we can make it more measurable. So that has been tweaked a little bit in some, maybe a couple of objectives. Other than that, everything is the same what we have sent to you. So before we go out to the breakout rooms, I just wanted to give you this guidelines. So we would have 5 breakout rooms. For each goal, there would be 1, and for sustainability, which is the big bucket, we want actually 2 groups to discuss about it. So each group would have 4 to 6 LRTP Advisory Committee members, plus 2 staff members who will share screen so that you are oriented while you are discussing. We'll have a 30-minute discussion. It's timed, so once you go into that breakout rooms, there's going to be a timer for 30 minutes, and then once that's done, we are automatically going to come back in the main room. So once we have that discussion, we are asking that each group reports for 3 minutes. So we have 5 groups. That would be 15 minutes, 3 minutes each. And one of the advisory committee members volunteers to report back. So rather than staff doing that, we want you as an advisory committee member to report back. And these are the general directions on what we want the discussion to be. For the goals, do the goals statement actually justify what we want to achieve in the future? So that's something which can be tweaked. Objectives, do they make sense? Are they the most correct way to measure success? Also, you can add, remove, edit objectives as you needed. If you think this objective doesn't make any sense, and you strongly feel that it doesn't need to be there, we can remove that. Or if you think there's something which needs to be there, we need to add that, then it could be added. But again, as we said, its objective has to be measurable, and there has to be certain mechanism for those objectives to be measured. So once you provide, if there's any new objective you provide, staff will do a review and come back to you next time saying that whether it's feasible for that objective to be measurable or not. Also, it's good to have a high level discussion on the reduction improvement rather than focusing on how much. So there is that X%, rather than going detailed in numbers. I think a high level discussion would be good at this time because we don't have certain values for all the objectives as well. That needs to be calculated. So don't focus on the value actually, but focus on the high level discussion on how the momentum of how much is realistic for us to reduce or improve on that particular objective. So most refined calculation needs to be done. Some calculation I have provided is a little bit in a crude form, but those needs to be refined as well. And then finally, the strategies. Do the strategies make us achieve the overall stated goals and the objectives? So that's the main aim for the strategies to achieve those overall goals and objectives. And as the objectives feel free to add, removed, wordsmith it, edit it as necessary. So that's the general discussion. You will be randomly, uh, I think, sent into a group in one of those 5 groups. So before we do that, and this is the first time we are doing this, so I apologize in advance if there is any technical glitch on that, but we'll try our best not to do that. So before we go into those breakout rooms, is there any general question? Okay, hearing none, I think, Sid, I think we can start the breakout room now.
So hoping you haven't move anybody else.
Yeah, I'm trying to move a few people. Okay. So Sid, how do I join? Sid?
Yes, it says already in a group, but I can move you.
Yeah, I can't go to the group, resiliency group.
Okay, I just moved you back. Worked. Ollie, you and I are out here,
I'm here.
and
Hi.
we'll just wait till they join back in, so they're all in their sessions, and we're still live, but we won't be. It'll just be off for now.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, I don't think I got assigned to a room anyway because I wasn't sure I was going to be here in time. So this works out.
If you see any, if you click breakouts, if you see anything on there, I can make you a co-host. Maybe you can see if you can join in any one of them. But
Yeah, I can't.
um,
I'm not a co-host, so I can't see the
oh, I
breakouts.
just made you one. See if you can try
Oh,
now.
okay. Hang on. Let's see if they're hiding. They're hiding under more. Okay, I can see them now. Great. Okay. Yeah, so I can join
Yep.
if I need to. I
Yeah, if you
missed
need.
obviously what was happening, so it's fine. I think I know what they're doing, which is looking at the goals, right?
Yes, pretty much. Yeah, they just went over
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Because I missed that, but I think we did it in the last meeting, so I don't know if it's useful for me to be there, if it just messes it up. I'm just looking at who's in there. I don't know if I'm in the mindset to wordsmith right now, so
That's fine. Yeah, we can just mute it and off until they come back, which
yeah,
will be after 30 minutes.
cool. Then I'll just stay right here.
Sounds good.
Okay, I think we are all back. I think we had a good discussion. We had a good discussion in our room, and I hope it happened the same in all the rooms. And even though we're doing this for the first time, I feel that there was no major technical glitch in the process. So uh, let's go back. Let me share my screen so that we have something when we discuss as well. But yeah, can everybody see my screen? Safety? Yeah. Okay. So I think it's time to report back. Um, Sid, do you have the recording on for this session?
Yes, we
Yeah,
are
okay.
still good to go.
Yeah, because we might need to go back into recording to see what has been discussed so that we can um, tweak our goals and objectives. So I think we start with safety breakout room. Any major discussions on safety and who's reporting back to us?
Hi, Sulab. This is Todd with VDOT. I'll be reporting on safety.
Thank you, Todd.
Yep. So with the goal A, we had a slight modification on that. A transportation system where no one is killed or seriously injured. And then we wanted to add the following, and people feel secure and comfortable regardless of which method they travel. That way, that would include pedestrians, cyclists, etc., and all users. Some of the objectives we added on to were let's see, we wanted to make sure that non-motorized users were included. I feel like a lot of times when we say the number of people killed or seriously injured on our roadways, people just think of people who are traveling by automobile are the main one, but we want to make sure that all users are included. And then a way that we can measure that is not just by a percentage, but by miles of dedicated infrastructure. So during your travel, and that would be like 100 million vehicle miles traveled. So number and rate of injuries, number and rate of crashes, fatalities, etc., would also be done by miles traveled as well. Moving on to the strategies, we had a couple of modifications on number 3. Instead of distracted driving, we suggested dangerous behaviors because distracted driving is kind of limiting it. We want to make sure that people are not, crossing mid-block where there's not a crosswalk. And cyclists, moving out of their bike lane if there is a dedicated bike lane onto the roadway, etc. So just dangerous behaviors in general. Speed management we added as a 5th one. And then also for a 6th strategy, we want to promote projects that are safe. So roadway projects that are designed properly, and that could be, like ensuring that the sight distance at intersections is the proper, distance in relation to the speed of the roadway. Ensuring that vehicle users have sight of pedestrians and cyclists and they aren't blocked or hindered, etc. And those were the main topics that we discussed.
Yeah, those look good. Any reaction from any other group before we move on to the next breakout room? Okay, let's go with the sustainability. We had 2 groups there, so we probably need to look at both of those groups and come up with any modifications suggested by both. So let's go with group 1. Who's reporting?
This is Phil from Group 1 for sustainability. We looked over the goal and had a few comments. The goal was a a transportation system that meets the needs of people alive today and provides the same opportunity for future generations. We felt like the people alive today was a bit awkward wording. So trying to come up with something that reflected the current generation. We felt the needs was undefined, and that maybe we should state a transportation system to provide easier choices. So that goal of trying to emphasize choice was pretty important to everyone. So the proposed change was a transportation system that enables sustainable choices for current and future generations. We tried to get into the goals. I'm sorry, strategies. I'm sorry, and we started. I'm getting mixed up in my notes. I'm sorry. We started with the objectives next, and we went to B5 and worked our way up. So with B5, we actually did not have any notes or suggestions for changes with that. For B4, we looked at the overall mode split as an important factor here. And how that works as we go forward into the future. How do we identify that future mode split, and how are these people potentially transitioning to bicycle and pedestrian, more transit, etc. And then for B3, we wanted to add essential services to this, such as shopping, errands, going to the doctor, medical visits, etc. And then the question of, is the half mile for every bus stop? I should say, we did also say, instead of transit stations, which we thought was a little too specific on larger stops, we should focus on the word transit stop. But anyway, is that half mile for every stop the right figure? And are we really focusing on just bicycle and pedestrian with those? And then finally, the wording of houses. The group thought it may be better to have it worded as residences. That kind of encompasses everyone. We didn't make it any further past that. So it was a pretty lively discussion.
Thank you, Phil. Any reactions to that? I think we'll take a note and try to make those changes as suggested. Okay, let's go to the other group, the Sustainability 2 group. And who's reporting back on that?
Yeah, we had a very lively discussion ourselves. I guess I would just ask if either Trip, Phil, or Corey would be comfortable reporting out.
You can go for it.
I don't mind. I'll give it a whirl. If we could just go back one slide somehow. For the general definition, we had a general discussion about including land use somewhere in the general definition, as obviously land use kind of dictates most of these other objectives. After that, the first goal, there was we got into a discussion about the goal of like reducing freight vehicle miles traveled by increasing usage at the port. One thing that was mentioned is we kind of need to account for goods moved through the airport as well, possibly, especially the value, because the high-end goods are usually shipped through air. For objective B2, we all thought this was a good one. One thing that we possibly discussed was kind of separating out driving, because for driving, you're kind of looking to decrease the amount of driving while increasing transit, biking, and walking. So creating separate, kind of a separate objective for driving versus the other modes. Now, if we could go back to B3. Um, we had two suburban counties in our little working group. So one thing we wanted to include in B3 was rideshare and proximity to park and ride lots. So by incorporating those, we recognize that the suburban counties are kind of included in this objective. And then for B4, we all agree that this is a great objective. The goal should be to reduce vehicle miles traveled. And for 5 as well, one comment was that kind of B5 might be incorporated by default in all of the previous 4 objectives, but calling it out helps. And I think Trip mentioned that this should just be overall emissions versus per capita objective. Dorian, if I missed anything, please help me out.
No, definitely think you covered it all.
All right.
Yeah, on B5, I was just saying, it just to clarify, it doesn't say, I think it's intended to be total emissions. Just one other real quick thing is, we did discuss and I thought agreed on that B4 should have an overall VMT reduction as well as a per capita, because that's what's going to really determine environmental impact.
Okay, any other comments on this discussion? Okay, so let's go to reliability then.
Sure. So I'll try to give an overview of what we talked about in our group. We had a good discussion. Starting with the definition, because reliability can feel so different for the different ways that you travel. I think if there's some clarification about that in defining the transportation system, whether you're traveling by car, public transportation, walk, bike, maybe that could be helpful, or at least acknowledging that those differ in some way when we get in the general definition. I think we all agreed that the overarching goal was kind of along the lines of what we were thinking. When we were looking at the objectives, something kind of that stuck out was that there wasn't really an objective that spoke to active transportation or public transportation. They're really focused on car travel. And then specifically, the first, well, I guess the not exclusively, but the C2 is talking about alluding to other ways of transportation other than car travel, but there's nothing that directly talks about reliability for public transportation or bike ped infrastructure. So if we could add something along the lines of reliability of buses coming on time or frequency, and then also like the reliability of infrastructure and facilities for various modes of transportation. And then looking at C3 and 4, we just had some questions, I guess, about how the scope, I guess, of Plan RVA and the regional body in impacting the measurements that are called out here, specifically around the national highway system. We just weren't sure how, I guess, if this group would be able to actually create change for those measurements, or if that was kind of outside the scope of how, like if it's at a different level, I guess, like the federal level, et cetera. And so that was kind of a question we had about those two objectives. And then looking at the strategies, I think we agreed that the strategies were similar to what we were discussing, but again, there wasn't really an objective that specifically spoke to strategy number 2 here, which was to expand dedicated infrastructure for transit and active transportation, and to add one of those would be really helpful. Yeah, hopefully I didn't miss anything big, but if anyone from my group thinks I did, please correct me.
So I just wanted to make clear about these objectives. Basically, these are also the national performance measures, which is reported by the state as well. So normally, the LRTP has a constrained budget, but and the maintenance is cut over the top. So normally, a certain percentage is already cut through maintenance, so it's already cut. But we can, based on how much funding we are getting on maintenance and what the priority of our plan, we could make the maintenance funding more as well. We could allocate some of the constrained budget to maintenance as well if that's really needed. Um, and some of the funds like the SGR, that can be played up in the, even though it's 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 kind of a state of good repair funds for payments and bridges. I think last time we used those funds to allocate rebuilding some of the bridges as well, like some of the selected bridges. So we can at this plan, at this level, we can change that as well. These things a little bit as well. So any other reactions or questions related to this group? I think we have a question.
Well, I think something that we wanted to note, because I don't think on the strategies there was anything specific per se for, the vehicles traveling through areas. And so we were thinking about high congestion areas and, whether it's looking at innovative intersections or other operational improvements, so that those peak hour traffic delays are reduced, in combination with the mode shifts that we are trying to encourage.
Great point. Okay, so we have the last group now, resiliency.
Yes. The objectives proved to be pretty difficult to nail down measuring, but we did have a couple of discussions about different strategies and a slight tweak to the goal. I'll start with the goal. We just wanted to add one word, preparedness, the transportation system that prepares, adapts, and recovers quickly, etc. We think that the preparedness piece can help address a lot of the strategies that I'll go into next. We talked about strategies for public education of disaster plans, making sure that everyone is prepared and plans are well communicated to the public. And then additionally, to have robust communication plans for extreme weather events like snow routes region-wide when those events occur. Let's see. Additionally, in the strategies, now there is some talk about the need for secondary routes and redundancy in our transportation system. But it was pointed out that there are significant areas in the region without major transportation corridors. And in the event of a disaster, to look at networks and connectivity to these areas in addition to redundancy. And finally, we want to ensure that secondary routes are suitable for new traffic flows that occur during an extreme weather event, and to make sure that those secondary routes have suitable physical conditions to meet the demands of being suitable for emergencies, and to observe those secondary routes limitations.
Guy, do you also want to add about the heat islands you talked about?
Sure. Part of where the adjustment to the goals came from was in discussion about um, extreme heat events as well. We felt like how things were laid out initially didn't quite leave room for those heat events. And the case that brought it up, GRTC, uh, for transit dependent riders around the region, their trips are impacted by extreme heat events. There are direct correlations between heat related illnesses and the location of transit facilities. And we thought that adding preparedness to the goal will allow space for us to develop strategies or objectives around being able to prevent those heat related illnesses that occur around transit systems.
Is there a question? I saw a hand raised.
No, not a question. I was clapping. I was happy. Good job, guy.
Thank you.
I know RVA Rapid Transit has done a lot of research into it already. So just, carrying that momentum regionally and through this resiliency exercise, I think would be more inclusive of more modes of transit.
Great. Do you need any other discussion? So we would review the recording and take the notes, also compare notes from other staff members and make changes based on your comments and suggestions, and send you the revised version, including your comments, before the next meeting. And then we can have a final discussion um, of everything. That might take a while, but the idea is that if you were in a group other than what you were already in, and if you have comments, please review this and send us our way so we could incorporate those comments as well. Um, yeah, please provide those comments to me directly through email, or we can also have a call or chat if that's needed. So we'll incorporate those comments from everybody, including what we have heard today, and then send the revised version of these goals, objectives, and strategies to you all. So the plan is to for us to ask you to recommend this to the policy board next time. So depending upon whether the group is ready for that or not, we'll know next time. But in the meanwhile, please review it. Please provide any comments, and we'll get back to you before the next meeting. It'll come with the agenda, or maybe a little earlier than that, so that you can have some more time. But I think that's it. Any other questions? I think the breakout rooms was a success. I know we decided to do this because there's a lot to be discussed, and it's hard to a 30% room. It might be difficult for everybody to speak, so that's why we thought that it would be easier to break out into small groups where everybody can talk. So I think this was a success, and we hopefully as a success technically as well. So hopefully we'll use this method for other discussion in the future as well. But unless anybody have any comments, we can go into the next agenda item. Okay, seeing none, I think we have Holly next talking about the public engagement update. And I'll stop sharing my screen.
Hi, everyone. Let me just get my screen ready. Okay. All right, so I wanted to give you an update on where we are with our engagement efforts since we last saw you. I think we were really just starting to launch them when we first met with you, and we had asked you to kind of tell us about where you'd been sharing. So I have a little bit of information about that a little later, but wanted to give you some numbers and kind of a little bit of background on our theory for what we're doing. So this is just a quick overview of numerically what has happened since we started this. So we launched this at the end of last year. We actually kind of had a little bit of an overlap of our rural transit study that kind of led into some of our starting for the LRTP. So a lot of those were similar needs. And so we kind of wrapped in some of the things that were ending for rural transit at the end of the fall. And then we started really in earnest in January of this year for the engagement period, which is January to April. So that's why this says November to March. So this is as of essentially a week or two ago that we have actually had 26 in-person events with folks, and we have 11 more that are scheduled. Got 4 more that are kind of in progress that are probably going to be scheduled. We have about 17 that are in potential various stages of completion. Some may not happen, and some are still kind of in conversation. But the exciting thing is that we've engaged over 1,200 people in that short time frame, which is really impressive. And that's just for in-person engagements. That does not count our website or anything that is virtual. This is a human interaction we had with people. And so if you go to our Engage page, which is just to the right there, engage.planrva.org/LRTP, you can actually see any public events that we've listed. We have not put every single activity there because if it was specific for a group, it isn't published, but you can see things that we have completed and things that are upcoming. So I wanted to give you a little bit about our philosophy of kind of what we're doing and how we got here. And so as you may remember, thinking about how do we have both a broad target for getting as many people as possible, right? We've got 1.5 million people in this region and we can't possibly chat with them all. So how do we figure out how to create ways for everybody to get involved and how do we target folks? And so how do we essentially start building some engagement and stakeholder infrastructure, which we haven't really had in any depth, at least not for an LRTP. The last LRTP that we did was during the pandemic, which was before my time. And so a lot of that was virtual. So we didn't have the same kind of in-person infrastructure. So it feels really good to be able to start building these relationships and targeting who we want to talk to and who are the groups that have good influence with all of our diverse residents in the region. And you might have heard us reference the 45 before, and that number is a little bit, it's true, but it's also a little untrue in that we said, well, what if we just picked a number? So we have 9 localities that we work in. And we said, well, what if we even just target going 5 places in 9 localities? Well, that's 45 specific touch points we would have to have. Now, obviously that number is not proportionate to population, right? There are fewer people that live in Charles City versus the city of Richmond, but that gave us an idea of like, okay, let's make sure we're targeting at least 45 different groups. Our target list had over 120, I think is actually closer to 150. As we shared with you last time we chatted, it was like, who are the groups that we need to be talking to? So it ended up being bigger than that, but that's where the 45 came from. And so a little bit of kind of our strategy of how we were approaching this is who can we target that is typically underrepresented or had limited access? And how do we build that long-term relationship with personalized conversations, going to where people already are, and realize, and anybody who's done engagement, many of you have, you probably know that if you just set up a town hall meeting and say, come to the library, nobody's coming, right? Like if they don't know you and care about you, people are not coming to your event. So how do we find out the groups that already exist and are gathering folks and build trust with them so that they're interested in learning about something that might not actually normally be on their radar? And then third is how do we create specific messaging? So how do we create things that are accessible, that are in multiple languages, that feel fun, that feel engaging? And so I wanted to just tell you a little bit more about kind of how we did this. And apologies for my slide. These are very text heavy. This is not my best slide work. So if you just bear with me, I had a lot of text to tell you. So I tried to just simplify it here of what we were trying to accomplish, right? We know that trust is long-term building and that this is the long game, right? And the good news is we had quite a lot of other engagements besides the LRTP right now. And so we had quite a lot of things to talk to folks about. So I actually think there's good momentum in the fact that we are talking not just about transportation, but the overlap of all of our work and starting to give that message about this regional strategic plan and the way that a lot of this work goes together feels like it's been helping people understand how all of our work does tee up together. So I wanted to thank you for those of you who told us where you were sharing. So these are some of the things you told us. We asked you, hey, where can you share about it? Because you are helping us get the word out as well. You are well connected in many of your communities, and we can't do this alone. So thank you to those who told us where they would share. It also helps us look for any gaps, like if we realized, oh gosh, we didn't even think about the Churchill Civic Association. It also helps, I think, for you all to think about like, oh, do you have some unique communities that might be that you have a special relationship with? I think when we are in our own communities, we don't always realize the power and influence we have, but you caring about this work and sharing it with your folks really does make a difference. So I see some locality newsletters and social media on obviously your government pages, so thank you for that. Some community events, even just like coffee shops, right? Like, I don't know about you, maybe this makes me old school, but I still check the flyer board at coffee shops to see what's happening. So even printing out and hanging a flyer somewhere where people actually have high traffic really can help. So our second description of kind of our pillars is, you know, targeting our in-person engagement. And so we've really seen that face-to-face interaction really helps, right? Especially if you don't know who we are and you don't understand what it is that your influence can have on a 25-year plan. Talking to people face-to-face really matters. So we've been doing some segment-specific events. So we're having our town hall for the deaf that was rescheduled to this Saturday. Trying to speak with groups to get more in-depth feedback. And so we've given you some examples here of some of the places we've been. I'll show you our master list in a minute. But also going to places where people are already gathering, right? So sometimes there's just a good public event where there's a lot of folks. And what has been nice that we've discovered is even when we're going to talk to the public, we often build relationships with other providers who are at events who have distinct audiences or have an interest in our work, and they help us spread the word because we've now seen them face to face. So I can't overstate the importance of in-person human relationships. We're also trying to personalize as much as possible without having to recreate the wheel. So trying to create some activities and gamification. A thing that surprised me that I learned is I was talking to a government provider about the ways that we might show up to an event of folks. And I don't think it occurred to her that we could bring something that was fun or customized. So the reason I say that is that let me figure out the creative way. What I'm trying to figure out how to do is get the relationships with the people and say, do you have people who have needs? Do you have people who have ideas? I can bring an activity to you that lets them share their ideas so that they don't have to go to a survey online. But let me figure that out. So it's really just make the connection to where are your people and how do we talk to them. And then this is just an example of kind of some of the community events that we have been reaching out. And now that it's spring, there's lots more things happening. It's hard to do public engagement in winter when nobody wants to leave their house. And then lastly, this is just talking a little bit about the messaging, right? Obviously using all of the communication channels available to us, trying to create it visually. Our social pinpoint page, the engagement page that we have, is translatable into 10 languages. We have also already translated all of our materials into Spanish. That's the next largest second language in our region. And then the thing that we really need to do a good job of once we complete this is tell people how their input was used. So that'll be the next step is like, how did you use what I said and why should I keep telling it to you? So I wanted to give you a quick overview of where we've been. And I can't show this to you here, so I'm just going to link to it so that you can see it a little bit better. So we have booked, these are some of the kind of groups that we've booked already, and to give you an idea of the locality served and the date of it. What we're realizing is that a lot of the groups we're serving truly are regional, right? They're not specific to a county because they serve the whole region. So Black Girls Do Bike is not specific to one county. They are working with anybody in the Richmond region. But then others are truly specific to a locality, like Powhatan. It was a listening session for the SPAN Center, which works with seniors. in Powhatan. Same with the Ashland Community Ambassadors, that was specific to Ashland. These are some of the things that are in progress. These may or may not all come to fruition. Some of them were leads, some of them were conversations we started that just didn't find a solution. And that's a good reminder to me that we do have to make a whole lot more connections in order to get a relationship. And so that takes time. But just to give you an overview of kind of who we're touching and where. And then down here are all the ones that we've completed. So it has how many and the locality served and the number of people we've engaged. So you can kind of see what we've been doing the last 3 months. Does anybody have any questions about where we've been so far before I show you some of our web stats? And I can't see everybody's hand so well. So if anybody does have a question, one of my colleagues can help me out. And as you might not be surprised to know, getting to the further flung counties, right, the smaller ones, New Kent, Charles City, we haven't hit them as many times, right? So we don't have 5 touches in Charles City right now. So we're right now essentially identifying gaps and trying to figure out what's possible to engage in the next month, because all of this engagement period will close at the end of April.
Amy, do you have a question?
Oh, I can't get I don't know how my hand. I'm raising.
Hi, Amy.
Hi. I just wanted to say thank you, Holly. This is amazing outreach and it's invaluable. So I just want to thank you and Kristen and all Plan RVA for all the work that you're doing on this, because it's incredible. In all the years that I've done regional planning, transportation planning, this is really impressive. So thank you. And also very thank you to coming out to our comprehensive plan meeting and engaging the residents that came out. I think we had over 100 people that came to our comp plan meeting that night, and Holly and Kristen engaged them very well. And hopefully we got a lot of good input from our residents. So thank you, Holly.
Oh, thank you, Amy. And actually, there's a conversation in progress. I just actually got off the phone with one of the residents and staff members of the Chickahominy Eastern Division. We're going to do a session in New Kent specifically for their audience because of the relationship we built at that New Kent comp plan meeting. So I love that all these connections happen because we're out in the public.
Awesome. Let me know. I'd be happy to attend.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I'm this close to having a date.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, so this is the back end of our engagement website, and this is new to us, right? We just launched this last year, so I have not mastered all of the bells and whistles on it yet, but this is just to give you an idea of kind of the performance of the site. And so this is showing you when we launched it, right? We had a couple of things in December, like I said, but really we truly launched the site in January to the public. And so how many views have we had? How many people have visited it? How many unique visitors is it? That's, I think, the difference between visits and visitors. Now, some of those visits are me going to the site to put things on, right? So like some of that is counting every time I'm going. I don't know if it's smart enough to recognize my IP addresses many times visiting. It probably is. But how many people have contributed is how many initial contributions. So we're going to show you that in a minute. So that's pretty cool in just a short time, how many things have been collected here. And this is the breakdown of what it is. We have 2 activities on the site. One is our social map, right? The map where you pin issues. And the other is the survey, which is the form. Now, that's a dramatic difference of input. Now, I'll tell you, some of those social map inputs are physical map inputs that we put in, right? So anytime we took an activity physically somewhere, we put those online. So that 1,000 number includes those in-person engagements. But what this also shows me is that people are not super keen to fill out a form, right? So, and our survey is purposely very simple at this stage because we're still in the visioning. It's just a couple of kind of prompt questions and so what would you like to see? So it's open-ended, so it's okay to me that that number is a little bit lower, but it also reminds me that people really engage well with activities. So how can we activity anything we do to get public input? And that's it. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts? And as I said, we're going to the end of April. So April is the end of this particular engagement. Now, it doesn't mean we're not going to talk to anybody, but trying to kind of run this data and see what we have. The next big engagement period is next January to March, where we will have we'll have some projects suggested by then where we'll go back to the same communities and say, hey, here's what you told us. Here's how we took that information and turned it into some sample projects. Tell me about how you feel about this. What would you like to prioritize? Where should we be putting our money? And we're trying to revisit these communities 3 times over the course of the 2 years, right? So we've got some folks that we definitely want to revisit next year. And then again, when the plan is complete, to say, here's where we ended up. So that feels a little bit different than how we've done it before, and that we are trying to intentionally ask to return back to share back. That's it for me.
Thank you, Holly. Do you anybody has any further questions to Holly? Okay, seeing none, I think this is the end of the meeting. The next meeting, I think there was a typo in the agenda. The next meeting, our meetings are always on the fourth Wednesdays at 10 a.m. So that gives us April 23rd is going to be our next meeting at 10 a.m. And Mitch, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's the next meeting is also the same time as VTA, which is right here in Richmond at the Richmond Marriott. So if Virginia Transit Association's annual conference. So if anyone's interested in that, feel free to check it out.
Okay, thank you, Mitch. So yeah, it's I just want to reiterate that the meetings would be in Zoom. Somehow there was some technical issue in the Outlook invitation which I sent, which shows the team link. So some of you actually started the Teams meeting today as well. So what I'm going to do after this meeting is delete all the Outlook calendars and then send one again so you don't have that Teams link. So the procedure is that we'll send you an agenda and the Zoom meeting registration link at least a week before the meeting. So you have to register as a Zoom webinar, and then you'll get a link so that you can join the meeting. So you won't have Teams meeting for this. Yeah, so the next meeting will focus on, as we said, based on your comments and suggestions, we'll revise the goals and objectives and then send that to you for your final recommendation. That would be next time. And we'll also have updates on you for task 4, as well as we'll also start the project inclusion guidelines for task 5. So that would be the main items for discussion in the next meeting. But if you have any questions, any concerns, just email to me or call to me or any other Plan RBA staff. If you have any specific concerns about any issues, just call us and we'll be happy to talk with you. The meeting presentations would be, and the recording would be posted at least by early next week for sure, so that you can review this final slides, as well as if you want to go to the recordings as well, you can look at that as well. So the only thing is that since we had a main room and then we did the breakout rooms, 5 different breakout rooms. We still have to figure out whether we were all able to record those breakout rooms or not. But obviously, the main room event would be posted. We'll also look at if we'll be able to post the breakout rooms as well. Those would be really important as well if we want to look at what the discussion happened and based on to take notes and then tweak the goals and objectives so that we can hear in much more detail than the room in which we were actually present. So I think that's all, and we are almost on time. So it's almost, we have 4 minutes left to 12. And if we don't have any questions, I think we are done. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.